All right, I'm going to get started and welcome you all this morning. And thank you to Tim Kultenecker, Gina Cunningham. I just spoke with Jen Lamia, who's unfortunately at another conference, but she sends her regards. Thank you to the members of our Board of Education who are here this morning as well. Thank you to Kristen and Colleen. We have Media Center, Brian Melso here. And thank you to all parents who are able to make it and be here with us this morning. All right. So once again, good morning. I was looking at the calendar and this is our 31st day of school. So we have been going at it. We're in October right now. I think for all of us here, we feel like we're doing a really good job of maintaining the plan that we set out with in the beginning of the year. I think we all can see that doing it really deliberately has paid off for us, where we see other schools and other districts that they haven't been as lucky, and we're certainly there's luck is a component of this. But I think being able to work our plan and sort of to establish our protocols very early on has helped us get here. And I really want to thank all of the members of the community for allowing that to happen and for supporting the plan that we have in place. So just going over our agenda for today, Dr. Kultenecker is here. He's going to be doing a Title I presentation. And if I know him, that presentation will skew more towards actually teaching and learning than Title I. I just wanted to go over and briefly discuss the blue ribbon that we were awarded at the end of last month. We're going to go over our superintendent's conference day and offer some options for parents for challenge success. We're going to discuss our site-based team. Colleen O'Connor has a very good update for our driver's education program. We're going to discuss our master schedule planning. Going to go over the plan for election day. We're going to discuss some staffing, talk about the end of all of our quarters, and then just go over upcoming dates and events. But I'll hand it off to Dr. Kultenecker now, and he's going to go over the Title I presentation. So, Tim, you got it.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And it's so nice to see some familiar faces and familiar names. And I'm just hoping someday we can see each other in person and actually have coffee in person. But it's this in the meantime. So I have two parts to my presentation. First are a few slides on the Title I overview, which is required that I present. And then in the second part, I want to give just a few slides to show what teaching looks like now in our schools and talk about the work the teachers have done to prepare for that. So on the next slide is just an overview of what Title I is. Title I is funding that we receive based on need in our district. And I'll give you an overview of what Title I is and show how the funds are used in our schools and how parents can be involved in our schools. Those are the required components of what I have to present to you. On the next slide, you'll see that Title I allows for funds to be used toward programs that support students' academic support. Also, we could spend some of the funds on materials or supplies and any additional programs. We also can provide funds on teacher training and opportunities for parents to be involved in the school. Byram Hills receives about $50,000 annually in Title I funds, so it's not a large amount like some of our neighboring districts receive, but I'll take any of the money we can get that offsets anything we have to do to take it from our operating budget. So in the past, we've used funding on, majority of our funding goes toward academic support programs, whether during the school year or after school programs for our students. And that academic support is often based on test scores from the state standardized tests, where students need academic intervention services. We also will use some funding toward professional development that helps give teachers the skills they need to support all students. And sometimes some of the funds go for assessment design and providing other types of work during the summer for teachers. On the next slide, you will see that if there's any complaints about ESSA funded compliance, you can contact the district office, or there's a website for information about ESSA-provided funds. And then finally, how parents can be involved in our schools. You're at a principal's coffee, so that's one way to be involved, is stay involved with our principals meetings and in our buildings. We also have a very active PTSA, as many of you know, and a very active education foundation. And we have our Bobcat TV. Brian Melso is here, who you probably know and have seen around the district, photographing and taking pictures and providing programming for our community. Also, parents can be involved in hiring committees. You do need to be trained, but we put out emails usually in the spring, and Gina Cunningham will facilitate that. And we're glad to have parents involved in hiring decisions. Also, Chris will talk today about site-based teams in the upcoming meeting. So we do encourage parents to be involved in our schools. I know your children appreciate it, and we appreciate it as well. So that's the Title I portion that I'm required to do every year since we do receive funds. On the next slide, I just want to talk about what teaching looks like now in our schools. You're seeing it maybe from one perspective from your child on the days they're home. A lot of work went into it this summer. I know we spoke to you over the summer about our framework for teaching, what that's going to look like. We had various subcommittees of our teachers working together tirelessly to figure out what are the best practices to engage kids in a hybrid learning environment or a remote learning environment. And in some regards, it'll look the same, like those top two pictures of Mr. Lewick in one of his classes where students are go outside. They have to design a rocket to launch, and they record how far it goes. So on the right picture, you can see the one student's rocket being launched. Students are socially distanced and they're wearing masks when they're outside, but we're still maintaining some of those same hands-on activities. On the next slide, I want to thank the Byram Hills Education Foundation for working with the district this summer to purchase what's called a ViewSonic device, which is a monitor that allows for interaction for our teachers to use. That really helps in the hybrid learning environment and will be helpful in a remote learning environment. You can see these teachers, you have Mr. LaRue, Ms. Stahl, Ms. Sauer, Mr. Young using the ViewSonic while they're engaging kids both at home and in the classroom at the same time. And that was one of our big challenges this summer, figuring out how to do it. And this device has really been helpful. That allows teachers to still see the kids while they're at home, but still being able to share documents easily and access documents electronically, or even show documents from a document camera. And this picture sort of shows the complexity of teaching now. I like to refer to this as the teacher command center, where they're having access to the kids at home, the kids in the classroom, and all of their materials, right at their fingertips. On the next slide, you see Mr. Borneman's classroom and the complexity of this design. I know Mr. Walsh visited this classroom as a remote observer or remote student to see his perspective. You can see there are 3 cameras I've circled on the left there. He's using 3 cameras, and he actually will tell the students at home which camera to pin to their screen to see what he wants them to see. So he's sort of working as almost like a director of a TV program might switch to cameras. And you have a camera that is showing what the student is writing on the board. You have a camera that is showing Mr. Borneman and can also show when he is doing a lab. And then a camera that is showing the class so kids can see the connection and feel the connection to the kids in the classroom at the same time. So these are the types of planning that teachers had to put into designing the classroom experience. And you can imagine the time it takes to be able to visualize what that experience will be like for both kids in the classroom as well as the kids at home at the same time. On the next slide, you see 2 other classrooms. On the left is a social studies classroom. You see the students on the screen and the kids in the classroom so they can have a group discussion. You also see down there on the right a program called Padlet, which is like a shared bulletin board. So kids could be sharing their thinking and having a discussion virtually and responding to each other virtually. It's just one of the many tech tools our teachers have used to be able to really try to simulate learning together and create opportunities for kids to be interacting with one another and simulating some of those classroom discussions we like to have. On the right side, you see a program that was being used by our science research class and now being used by some other teachers, which is, it's sort of like a big canvas that kids can put their research in and their work in and use it as a design template. And you see kids can be having a video chat with the kids at home at the same time. So they could be having a real interactive team collaboration while they're sharing their documents together, yet still connecting with each other with those kids that are at home at the same time. And on the next slide, you see more collaboration. This is a middle school teacher, Kat Dawes, who is, again, at her command station, but also having kids. She was working with having kids do group work. So kids had partners. They were logging into a Google Meet with their partners and working on a shared document. And she's able to monitor those shared documents to see what kids are writing as kids are working in their collaborative groups. So it's almost like she would walk around the classroom, but instead walking around that virtual document so she can still give feedback to kids in real time, watch what they're writing, and have kids working together. That was really important to us, is that we find ways to get kids to interact with one another while they're still separated either at home or in the classroom. And we're finding ways to do that. On the next slide, we're still finding ways to simulate a classroom, getting kids outside. We've been fortunate to have nice weather this fall. This is our band classroom going outside so they can still play and practice together. And maintain at least 12 feet distance while they're playing instruments. So we're taking advantage of our outdoor space as well. And I do want to thank the foundation again for helping fund some of the canvas, giving us some shade around our buildings, at every building, so that we could take our classes outside as well. And just let me end on a few things. We're still maintaining focus despite the challenges this year on these areas that are our curricular and instructional focuses around empowering students, our 21st century skills, staying focused on problem-based learning and authentic learning experiences, still engaging in work around the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and global competence, focusing on our leadership and our character education. So those maintain our focus in our curriculum while we still work on maintaining social distance in a hybrid learning environment. And showing just an example of our STEAM in this hybrid environment. This is our robotics class. We're in our, I think it's our third year of a robotics program, still maintaining how do we get our kids to collaborate. So Mr. Lichten, who is our teacher, paired kids up. So generally what kids do is they're paired up and they work on building a robot to meet specific challenges, and they learn how to code those robots. He paired up a kid who is at home with a kid that is in person, keeping that connection. So you can see the kid on the left. These two kids still have to build a robot to meet the challenge. So what happens is when the kid is in school, he's working on the physical robot, while the kid at home in that upper right-hand screen is working on the coding and learning the coding skills and working on coding the robot. And they can talk to each other during class. So when they switch and they come back in, the student who is at home now has to look at what the student in school was building, and they can have conversations about what he was working on and why he made some of those choices, while the other child now is at home working on the coding skills. So they're actually literally sharing those responsibilities and toggling back and forth between them, but also staying connected during the class time and having to maintain that communication. So they're working on it. So we thought this was a great simulation of what learning may look like if one goes off into the world and working in industry where you might be working with teams that are in different locations. And then also on the next slide is showing our Global Scholars Program. Maintaining this program, we have about 140 students enrolled in the 3-year sequence this year. We're now in our 4th year of Global Scholars. On the left shows our conceptual framework for the design of our curriculum. And these are the mindsets. And I thought I'd share these mindsets because I think they also are really relevant to the world we live in today, where we're dealing with students and are very explicit in teaching these mindsets with kids and having kids reflect on their comfort with ambiguity, on empathy, on their desire to engage, and on their ability to be resilient. And that sums up this portion. Wanted to give you a little flavor of what learning looks like now in this hybrid environment, as well as maintaining our focus on what's really important in teaching and learning today in our schools. So thanks for giving me this time, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you very much, Tim. I'm going to open it up if any parents would have a question about Title I or any of the information that Tim presented. now would be the time when you could pop it over in the chat box.
And don't feel offended if you don't have any questions. I know you really want to hear from Chris and talk about the specifics of the high school program, but thanks for letting me have some time.
All right. And if you have any questions that you didn't feel like you could put in the chat box, you can always email Tim, and I'll put his email address in there. If you had a specific question that you wanted to ask outside the meeting, you can certainly do that. Tim, you are welcome to stay. You could stick around for as long as you like. I know that you have a lot to do, so I won't get offended if you have to take off.
Thanks, Chris.
So I just wanted to give the community sort of a congratulations for the 2020 National Blue Ribbon School of Excellence Award, because it really is a community award. And feel very proud of our entire community for receiving this award and for getting this recognition. We were one of 367 schools nationwide to receive a blue ribbon. And then even within that category, it gets a little bit more differentiated based on whether a school had growth rates or continued exemplary high performance. And for us, we were in that category for exemplary high performing. Due to our achievement and our region scores and our continued level of excellence, we were identified as a school in that category. And it was really something for us to be very proud of. We were only one of 18 schools recognized in New York. And then even within that category, we were one of 9 public high schools in New York. So I think what sums it up the best was sort of the last little bit of our award. It's that Byram Hills High School is so successful because of the alignment between the expectations of the community, the professionalism of the faculty, and the engagement of the students. And it really is something that every different stakeholder in the community can feel proud about. And it really is, for me, sort of something that makes us even raise our game even higher now, where it was good to be recognized, but we always know that there's more to do. So that continuous improvement model, this is something that we will use as sort of a snapshot of where we were during this time and then continue to move forward from there. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of the community for this award and for their part in helping us to get it. So great job, Byram Hills. Great job to the community. All right. I just wanted to give everybody an update on our Superintendent's Conference Day. So those different types of chimes that you're hearing in the background, those are the bells that we use to stagger the release of all of our different grade levels. So each grade level has a different chime, and when they hear that chime, they would release from their classes so that we could limit the amount of students in our hallways during transitions. So when they come on, you'll be hearing them for the next 7 minutes or so. That one that you just heard, that was for our sophomores. So, but just going back to a review of our Superintendent's Conference Day, last Tuesday, we held it here at the school from 8:30 to 3 p.m. And this is something where it really, for us, was a time when the faculty could come together. Everybody has really been working so hard, sort of in their own little worlds, trying to make sure that they are doing everything they can to make sure that they're delivering the best instruction during this pandemic that they can in our hybrid model. So this was the first time really since we opened that we had a chance to come together as a faculty and to sort of reflect and debrief on things that are working, things that are successful, areas that we want to address. And we were lucky enough to have our friends from Challenge Success partner with us to offer 3 different conferences that day. And again, just going back over the last 3 years, we were really lucky to establish this connection originally through a grant with the BHEF. And from that original grant, we've really taken it into some of the most important areas that help our school function. So I think a lot of that work that we did early on with Challenge Success enabled us to sort of look at what we were going to do with our schedule and with our plan here this year with a lot easier than we would have if we hadn't had that partnership. So the first conference that we had was Nurturing Student Connections. And this was a conference that everybody attended. And it really sort of drove home the idea that what we're doing now is we're not only teaching in a hybrid, we're not only learning how to teach remotely, we're really learning how to teach during a pandemic. And we have to make sure that we are constantly acknowledging the difference between the two. One of them is sort of just a very technical adaptation that we would have to go through. The other one is a really transformational adaptation. And so for us, doing this, what we're doing right now, we can take care of all the technical aspects of it, but it really requires us to change our thinking around teaching and learning altogether. And that was really helpful for me to sort of have another reinforcement on reframing what we are actually doing here as we open the school up during a pandemic. In the afternoon, teachers had two workshops to select from. They could select from assessment in the remote learning or engagement in the remote learning. And these were just ways that teachers could think around different strategies for assessing student work, where some of the traditional ways that we would have had in the past are no longer realistic. So the assessment workshop really got teachers to think about ways that they could address giving a grade to students. And still we have a commitment to giving kids grades on report cards this year without being able to rely on those summative type assessments that we would have had in the past. We're really looking at ways to address the equity issues of assessing and trying to look at ways that we can do a better job of assessing growth, student behaviors, achievement, and some of those other things that we might not normally have assessed in the past, where in the past we might have just relied on achievement. But now in this current framework, we're going to have to really expand the way that we are assessing all of that growth and learning. And then engagement in remote learning workshops, those were the people who selected that were teachers that wanted to have a better feeling of sort of community in the classroom, where right now in the hybrid, we are doing a really good job of presenting the work. And it's in many ways very teacher-centered. This engagement workshop helped our teachers further develop their ability to, even in a hybrid model, to make it become more student-centered and to give students a little bit more voice and choice during this hybrid learning model. So overall, the day was it was a great way for us to come back together as a faculty and to sort of just address where we were, to give a little bit of a snapshot of where we were currently and where we would need to go. So teachers have a lot of tools going forward. Some of our pupil personnel team, they had other workshops on addressing mental health issues. Our guidance counselors worked on workshops to address some of those concerns that are coming up towards college placements. So it was a really great way for all of us to reset and to become inspired to continue going on into the end of the first quarter here. I did want to also let everybody know that there are upcoming parent workshops from Challenge Success. And they are two workshops that I can feel comfortable saying these would be workshops that promote sort of our thinking around this as well. And the first one is a healthy approach to college admissions, and that's a webinar. And then navigating school during uncertain times, strategies for remote, hybrid, and in-person learning. And these are designed for parents. So if you would like to sign up, there is a $10 fee. October 27th is the college admission one. And then November 12th is the navigating school during uncertain times. If you would like any information on them, they will be on the on this website as well. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and you can use that as well. All right, so let me move on to the site-based team. And the site-based team was originally established way back during No Child Left Behind. And it was one of the things that they implemented to give communities more voice and more choice in different curricular decisions that were being made at the different sites. So our site-based team over the course of the years has sort of evolved and has taken on many different tasks. So since I've been principal, we've used site-based team to look at our master schedule, to look at global scholars, to look at leadership, and we sort of use it as a sounding board to help us get the voice of the stakeholders in the community. So it does give parents the opportunity to have an impact on building level decisions. You can work with teachers, administrators, district administrators to promote programs and to support our overall district's mission. And I'm going to actually, if Tim is still out there, I'm going to hand it off to him. I'll put him on the spot to just speak about some of the great work that the site-based team has done over the course of the years.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. We really appreciate parent involvement. So every building has a site-based team, and then twice a year we come together as a district where we bring the district team together to share the work that's happening across the building. So that helps us see the continuity and the continuum from kindergarten through 12th grade. So we have done work around when we were creating our Global Scholars Program, really getting input from the community on the design of that program. We have looked at when we had big changes in curriculum standards and our curriculum in ELA and math. We had presentations around what those shifts were so that our community understood the changes in our curriculum across the district. This year, we will be using our district-wide site-based teams to get feedback on how hybrid learning is working for children in our district. So parent perspective is really important as we work together around a lot of the models for learning, what's working well in our schools and where we can improve. So we know from literature and the research that parent partners produce the best learning, that it is the partnership between parents and schools that really help us create high standards for our students. So I hope you're involved so you can be involved at the building level. And if that's too much work and too much time, you can also join us at the district-wide meetings. And we have one coming up on the 26th, I believe, October 26th. So thanks, Chris.
All right. So we are, again, thanks, Tim. And the information, if you would like to be part of the site-based team from the high school, you can just shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to include you in on our site team. So again, the first meeting is going to be next Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. And then the second meeting is going to be on February 25th from 4 to 6 p.m. All right. Thank you very much. And now, very exciting, I'm going to hand it over to our AP, Colleen O'Connor, to discuss our driver's education and to give an update. So we have some good news for everybody out there. So Colleen, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, great. So we actually have two pieces of good news. The first is we are going to be able to offer a fall driver's education course. We have a new agency that we're working with. The class will be offered through Zoom this year on Mondays, and then starting in November on Mondays and Tuesdays. The class will conclude before the December break, and students need to attend all classes. I believe there's 15 sessions total. And it will run from 3 to 4:30, and the first class is actually this coming Monday. If you would like to sign your student up, we're going to be sending an e-blast home tomorrow morning with a Google form. And what you need to do is complete the Google form. We can only, unfortunately, open it to 50 students. So the first 50 students to complete the form will be enrolled in the program. And then your student will bring in a check to cover the cost of the program to the main office within the first week. To complete the Google form, you will need your student's driver's learner's permit number. So make sure you have that to sign up. And the reason the cost is $100 is because this will only be the instructional piece. Because of the new regulations with the DMV, parents are now able to provide the road hours for students and certify it with the school. So the driver's education course is covering the instructional piece, and then you will provide the road instruction. So that's for students who want to enroll in driver's ed this fall. For students who were involved in driver's ed this previous spring, we also have some good news, which is those students should be working on completing those certification hours and turning them into the main office. We have the certificates of completion that we will be getting back to students within hopefully a week or so once they submit their form. But in addition, because driver's ed was so different this year and you didn't get the road hours of instruction, we're able to send everyone a refund of $410. They will be mailed during the next week or so. And I just really want to reiterate how much I appreciate people's patience with this process as we figured this out this fall. Somebody asked to clarify how we certify hours for spring. If you did not receive the email to certify the hours for the spring, please email me so that I can send you the directions. But basically, we have like a curriculum that we send you that outlines the things you should cover in your road hours. Then there's a log sheet that you need to fill out with your student. Your student needs to initial it, as do you, and you sign at the bottom just certifying that you did 24 hours of road instruction. And then you would have your student bring that to the main office. And then in terms of the spring driver's ed, we would certainly hope we will be offering some type of driver's ed in the spring. I'm not sure whether it will be Zoom or not. I think it really depends on the regulations at that point, and what the DMV releases for regulations around driving hours. Oh, and I hope that also answered the question about if you don't get one of the 50 spots this time, when is the next one? We're hoping to offer another one. So if this one concludes before December break, we would hope to offer one starting, I would think, in around February.
And again, the cutoff would be having the learner's permit. So you would have to have the learner's permit by the time you signed up. So that's the age cutoff. If you don't have that learner's permit, you won't be able to sign up for the course. And we can officially say that PAS Auto has gone out of business. So great job to Colleen, working behind the scenes, cleaning up the mess that was left when they did go out of business. But thank you. It's been a lot of work on her end, and I really appreciate her doing everything she could to make sure that we could offer something for our students.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Master schedule. So just to give everybody an update, we were in the midst of creating a new master schedule when COVID hit in March. And in fact, our last faculty meeting was during the week before we left. And during that faculty meeting, we really discussed what we're calling the Byram drop. And this came out to be a consensus schedule at that time. And the students were involved. We had a number of different stakeholder meetings over the course of that year that allowed us to get to this consensus schedule. So just as a reminder, this schedule took us from 40 minutes per class up to 65-minute periods, which was a 1/3 increase in class time, and then a 47% more than an A day. It also gave us a 45-minute universal lunch. It gave us 20-minute office hours embedded in the day, increased the passing time to 4 minutes, and then there were 5 meeting times per day for classes. So we are still going to be moving ahead with the move to a new master schedule, and we're going to be addressing how we can utilize sort of the learning from this schedule that we're using right now to inform the new master schedule, and whether we want to take any of those different things that we're seeing right now and implement it in the Byram drop. So the idea would be that the schedule will be implemented the next school year that begins normally. And we are hopeful that that means that it's going to be next year, and we would be more than happy if we could bring this schedule in and then use it going forward. So I think there's a lot of really good things that we're seeing out of this current schedule. And remember, this schedule is a hybrid schedule for a pandemic. For what it's optimized for teaching at a high level during a pandemic, right? We're hoping that the Byram drop will be optimized for increasing that sort of rigor and learning while giving students an increased availability for overall wellness. So that's sort of the mindset that we have going into the planning for the master schedule. And last year during this principal's coffee, all the parents participated in a QFT. And during that QFT, you came up with a lot of really great questions around what do we need to make sure that we are providing the best master schedule for our students. And from those questions, we came up with this Byram drop. And we really appreciate all of the parents' input. We are meeting with the faculty master schedule team this Friday to start going over it again. And we'll be taking steps throughout the year to develop, to plan, to coordinate. Our plan is eventually to get it up to the Board of Ed for them to approve by March so that we could plan for that next September when we start. So Election Day, we were identified along with HCC as one of polling places here. And again, it's Tuesday, November 3rd. On that day, we didn't like the idea of our students intermingling with members of the community because it sort of didn't align with our plan. And our plan was really that our campus was for our students, and we're not even allowing parents to come in to drop off things. So we didn't feel comfortable with the idea of members of the community coming into the building without being able to be screened and to properly go through all of our protocols. So thankfully, we are going to be using that day as a fully remote learning day. So students will not report to school on that day. It is an A through K day. No students will be reporting during instructional time during that day. They will all be, it will be synchronous instruction throughout the day. Now, our teachers will be here in the building and they'll be teaching from their classroom, and we will still have athletics after school. So the practices will continue, although we're going to be putting some really tighter restrictions on them and where they will be able to access. So we will be able to supervise all students in athletics so that we don't have any interactions with members of the community who are coming in to vote. All right, and we'll also be doing that, managing the games as well. All right, so we are thankful that we have that opportunity to sort of test out a remote learning day for everybody, because God forbid we do have to all go remote. This would be the model that we would be using. All right, just on the just going off of that election day, it's crazy, but we're getting into November. We will have Veterans Day, which is November 11th. And again, schools and offices will be closed that day. But then we start looking ahead to Thanksgiving. And I know that just in speaking with Jen Lamia this morning and over the course of the last couple of weeks with different parents and even some teachers, there was just some questions around, well, we know Thanksgiving, we're going to have a lot of, for the high school, this is probably much more of an issue than it is at let's say, Coleman Hill or Wampus, but we're going to be having a lot of siblings who are going to be returning from college during that time. And we understand that that's going to be something that people will want to know how we're going to be handling it. What I will say is that Dr. Lamia will be addressing this with the Board of Education on their meeting on November 3rd, and we will get information out to all the parents and the community on November 4th. We'll be presenting. We will have a plan on how we are going to be addressing all of those issues with either people going away, traveling, or even having people coming back from states that are hot states. So there will be a plan. It will be communicated on November 4th. We do know that it's an issue. We do appreciate everybody's need to plan, and we do hope to get that out on November 4th. So, you know, in as that goes on, we started thinking about, well, we're doing pretty well here, knock on wood, especially at the high school. And at what point will we start to look at maybe opening up our doors to more students? And although we would love to be able to do that, unless we are going to get different guidelines about the 6-foot restrictions, right? We still have to make sure that we are managing those guidelines here. And we're not in a vacuum. You know, you just heard, you know, George Latimer yesterday speaking about the cases going up and how there's a small spike in the Westchester County. Although that might not be happening here locally, we're not in a vacuum, and we have to take that into account. So there is a bigger sort of picture here that we sort of have to align to. And although we are thinking about those things, we are planning for trying to get people back in the building, and we're looking at different scenarios, whether there's a vaccine, whether there's a level of herd immunity, whether COVID is still, you know, at the levels that it is right now, the infection rates are still where they are, or whether we don't have COVID to worry about at all. We're sort of looking at all of those different scenarios and coming up with a plan for how we get people back into the building and how we can get the students all back in here. So I do understand that people are thinking about it. It is in the back of everybody's memory or their mind, and we want to make sure that there will be a plan that will be communicated on November 4th. Just a little staffing update. Unfortunately, we had Mr. Piali, Jonah Piali, our choir teacher. He resigned effective October 15th, and we wish him the best of luck as he goes on to a district closer to where he lives in the city. And he had a great opportunity there, and just had to jump at it. So we wish him the best of luck. Tim had mentioned it earlier, but we did convene a hiring committee, and we did have 2 parents who were part of that committee, and we appreciate their participation. We were able to interview a number of qualified candidates prior to Mr. Piali going out, and we've made recommendations to Dr. Lamia and Ms. Cunningham, and then to the Board of Ed. And the candidate will hopefully be approved by the Board of Ed the first week of November. And during that time, we would expect that candidate to come in during the week of November 9th, that person to begin working with our choir students. So it is, 3 weeks away. In that meantime, Pete Paulix, our fine arts director, is working with the teachers who are doing the coverages there so that those students in Mr. Piali's classes are still supported. And Mr. Piali did leave a lot of work that can be done asynchronously in his absence. So we are looking to have somebody in place on November 9th. So again, best of luck to Mr. Piali, and we do welcome the new person when they get here. Good question there. I saw, will the schools be sanitized after the elections? Yes, in those areas where the community will be, which is mostly the upper gym and the upper gym lobby, those steps will be taken to sanitize those areas. Okay. Just a update, the end of the first quarter, and it's crazy to believe, but we're going to be there November 6th, which is 3 weeks from now. And this year, we are no longer staggering the end of the quarter. So all of the content areas will end on that date. But what we are doing is we are giving a little bit of flexibility to when those grades are going to be posted. So they will be posted on November 16th, which is more than a week after the end of the quarter. And we want to do this so that students have the ability to work with teachers to make sure that all of those areas that are being assessed, that they were, that the student understands where they were being assessed, and to give opportunities for the teachers to have some flexibility with assessing those things. So the second quarter is going to be ending on January 29th, third quarter on April 20th, fourth quarter on June 24th, and that's for grades 9 through 11. The super quarter for the senior is going to end on April 30th, and then grades will be due there the week after AP exams end for the seniors during their super quarter. And that would be all of their grades except for internship. Internship gets posted 1 week after the end of the internship when that's done. Is anything changing about internship this year? Yes. And we are, Kristen's here. I'm going to let her put her on the spot, and she can sort of go over our thinking about how we are approaching internship this year with all the various scenarios that are out there. So Kristen, go ahead.
Great question. We are currently working on 3 potential options for students, which would be the traditional option if life changes, a hybrid option if we're kind of in the same scenario, and a full remote option. We're hoping to still have our parent meeting coming up next month that we can review some of it, but we want to make sure that students have options and families that will work for them.
You know, it's different than last year because I think a lot of the companies that would normally host our interns, they weren't prepared for it. So now we've seen a lot of these different companies that have gone fully remote, that there are possible opportunities for our students to work remotely. But again, it was our practice for years that we wanted to make sure that our students got out of their houses to go to actual business sites, because we thought that that was a really important sort of soft skill building exercise for them. And it's one of those discussions that we have to have where, if this is the reality of the world nowadays, do we want to open it up to the possibility that students could intern from their homes? And I don't know that we're ready to answer that yet, but it is a question that we have been asking ourselves. All right, so I was just off of Kristen's just talking about how so many of the different companies have changed, and we weren't really prepared to have students do their internship last year, because for the longest time we really wanted to make sure that our students were going out to the business locations, because we felt that that was a really important soft skill development for them, to go to the site, to interact with different people. But now, being that so many of these sites have created ways for their employees and even their interns to work remotely, that's a conversation that we have to have. We're not ready to answer it, but we're possibly going to get there. So, okay, so going back to the upcoming dates, we have our cum laude induction. That's going to be this Thursday at 7 p.m. Parents can just click on the byramhills.org/BHHS. Monday, we have our site-based team meeting. Don't forget daylight savings time coming up on November 11th. Election day, again, remote learning for our students. November 4th, we have our school counseling discussion group at 9 a.m. and then college admissions and financial aid workshop, 7 p.m. on that evening. Again, November 6th, end of the first marking period. Veterans Day is November 11th. And then our next principal's coffee would be November 17th. All right, well, I'll stick around. And it was just, again, thank you very much for coming out here today. Just your presence here, it does send a sort of a message of support to everything that your children are doing. Just letting them know that you were here and that you had this meeting today, just mentioning it to them gives them a sense that this is sort of like a shared responsibility. And we really appreciate all of the extra support that our parents have had to give students during the remote instruction. We know that it's not easy. We are really very appreciative of all of your efforts. And again, thank you for all that you're doing to help keep us up and running. So thank you very much. And again, I'll stick around if anybody had anything that they wanted to chat about. I'll be here. So thank you very much. Go Bobcats.